Here at Paddy Power, we're the home of the Money Back Special, with some incredible offers every single week. Check out the website or app today. Terms and conditions apply. 18 plus begambleaware.org.
Hello and welcome back to the Football Postcast here on the Racing Post. Thank you so much for tuning in once again. Jack Reeve, Mark Langdon, Liam Flynn and Jason Murphy in the studio this week. I know, very exciting indeed. We're going to be taking you through all of this week's action, hopefully giving you some tips to help build your weekend football bets and also taking a quick look back as what's happened this week. Gents, let's get straight into it. Mark, we're sitting fairly close to each other once again. My cold is nearly gone. You're still struggling though, aren't you?
Mine's grown in strength, unfortunately, since last Thursday, but we carry on.
Hopefully I won't be catching anything new.
No, we go again, as Steven Gerrard infamously said.
Indeed, hopefully it goes better than what happened after that. Jason, how are you, mate? It's good to have you in the studio. It's a little bit cosier, but it's keeping us warm in what is a fairly cold studio.
Yeah, no, thanks for having us. It's great to be over and meet you face to face and hopefully give a few good tips.
He's already beaten me 1-0 on the pool table.
Oh, really?
Morning, yeah, so a bit frustrated.
A star in the making.
Yeah.
It's just Mark being nice, I think.
Liam, all good, mate?
Yeah, all good. Yeah,
good. It was Champions League. It was happening on Tuesday and Wednesday night. Jason, what were your takeaways from what was a fairly exciting game week, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was the Premier League with the weekend with VAR. Obviously, it was really interesting, great to watch. Champions League, not great for the bookmakers. All the Favs more or less winning Tuesday night. And Chelsea probably did us a favour last night, even though as a company, as a position, and personally, we were kind of opposed against Chelsea getting that result in Ajax. So it was good midweek for the punters, and it'll go again this weekend.
Liam, I usually fully agree with what I see on the back pages of the Racing Post. But yesterday I saw everyone backing Ajax and everyone really confident. But Chelsea are in a great run of form, aren't they? I was surprised people were going against them.
Well, I think the reason was, you look at Chelsea I think had won 5 on a spin before that Ajax game, but the games they'd had leading up to that, they were quite straightforward opposition. They weren't opposition which were really going to test them defensively, hence why their defensive record has seemed to have improved of late. So I think going to Ajax with the players they have in the final third, like Dusan Tadic, Quincy Promes, etc., I think people expected them to crumble. But to win 2-0 in Amsterdam is an absolutely terrific result in what is a very tight group. So yeah, that'll do their confidence the world of good.
Mark, what's going on with Spurs?
Well, that was much more like it on
better,
Tuesday.
wasn't it?
Yeah, look, Red Star were poor, really poor, but worse than I expected them to be. But at the same time, Tottenham, it felt like watching Tottenham, say, 18 months ago, just in terms of the endeavour and, Dele Alli made more runs against Red Star than I'd seen him in about 6 months. So hopefully he's back to full fitness. It's been a long struggle for him. And when he makes the runs beyond, that opens up space for Son and for Kane and, for Lamella and Ndombele has looked a lot better in the Champions League than he has the Premier League. I think the Premier League, we don't realise just how quick, because we watch it all the time, we don't realise how quick and demanding it is. So I think he's just taken a little while to get going, but that was much more to his liking. It was the perfect game for Pochettino and for Tottenham, and it's going to be a lot harder at Anfield on Sunday, I think it's fair to say.
Definitely. Jason, let's quickly touch on VAR. I'm sure Bruce is at home watching this, seething that we're talking about it once again, but I don't know what your thoughts are. I'm getting sick and tired of it, slowly but surely. It hasn't been a great start for it, has it?
No, it's. I think technology used in the right way will help and get to the right results that we want. We talk about the Thierry handball, which is, Henry, the classic example for an Irish fan.
Not bitter.
You go back to Maradona from an England point of view, Lampard in the 2010 World Cup. I know that's different. Goal line technology sorts that out now. But VAR, it's just the way it's been implemented. I think we will get more correct decisions on the bigger decisions if it's used more correctly. But some of these marginal offside calls, you have to pick the point somewhere. And I'm okay with that. I can accept that because there has to be a cut-off point when it comes to offside. But the likes of the penalty not given to Deulofeu against Spurs, I just don't understand it. I think it was Vertonghen went to ground and he's on the ground sliding for 5 seconds, hits him about 3 times. How can a professional referee, watch that back and say it's not a penalty? So I think they need to look at how they implement it. I think the other big decision was probably Johnny Evans. I think he's a quality defender. I think he has a chance of getting it, and it's a right decision. It's accidental by Wood, but it's still a foul, and that was the right decision there. And, that's a big difference. It's another 3 points for Leicester. So it's just how it's being implemented. I think it needs a look at. there are talks about, giving the managers, that they can maybe appeal 2 decisions a game. But what I don't like about that is, and I think was mentioned here previously, that if there's a last-minute goal, you're just going to appeal for the sake of it. And then when the decision is given, the noise in the crowd, it's only at half the level of what it should be. It is taken from the game, but there is still benefits to the game from having it, I think.
Liam, I'm sure you've probably got the most insight on this out of all of us, because you were with VAR officials, or whatever they like to call themselves, at the start of the season. What they said on that day compared to how it's being used at the moment, are they using it how they're meant to be?
Yeah, I mean, pretty much. I mean, obviously, there's the issue with the whole clear and obvious thing, and that's a very sort of muddy area. I think people still are uncertain of where that bar is exactly. The other thing I'd say about the way it's been implemented in the Premier League is obviously they really don't want to be sending the referees over to the screen. That's something that the Premier League they were quite clear about that at Stockley Park. One thing they didn't want to do.
Is there a reason for that?
Well, not to slow down the game. Ultimately, obviously, it's being used. I think UEFA implement it differently. They almost encourage the officials to use the screen if they're unsure. And I actually think that's holding back VAR in the Premier League slightly by not using the screens. I think for the sake of the game slowed down by VAR anyway. So for the sake of slowing it down for a couple more minutes, getting the decision right, I think it. If VAR is going to stay, as it obviously you expect it will do, that's probably the way around sorting it out, I suppose.
For sure. That's probably enough VAR chat for this week. I've got one quick Twitter question that's aimed in Mark's direction. This is from Guy. If any of you have any questions for our panel, please do make sure you tweet us or let us know in the YouTube comments section. Guy says, "Hi, I've always wondered why Mark does both teams to score as his recommendations in the Racing Post assist rather than over 2.5 goals. It doesn't matter which way I do it, always get it wrong. If I do both teams to score, it's 3-0. If I do overs, it's 1-1.
Right, the reason I do it in the assist in sort of my column that's on racingpost.com on it goes live sort of on a Thursday night, in the paper on a Friday, is purely that's what the customers wanted. When we sort of did some research some time ago, and Jason will probably be able to back this up in terms of what's a more popular ACCA bet on a Saturday, both teams to score. Certainly, I think in betting shops at least, it is far more popular than over 2.5. So that's why I do it, because it was just it was sort of supply and demand. And we had a winner last week on both teams to score 4-1. 4-1 treble came in.
Well, there we go, Guy. Maybe just get better with your selections. Right, let's get straight in.
It's difficult, over 2.5 probably is a slightly bigger price, sort of more often than not, if it's not a Man City. But I think both teams to score, you bet it just feels like it's always running, and I think that's why more people like to do it.
Okay, good stuff. Let's get straight into the Friday night fixture then. It's a game between Southampton and Leicester. 8 o'clock kickoff on this one. Jason, let's start with the odds and then start with your thoughts on this game.
Yeah, so we've Southampton 2-1, the draw 12-5, and Leicester 13-10. For me, Hasenhüttl is probably the next manager to come under pressure now. They've only 2 wins in 9, no wins at home, and the away wins that they did get was away to Brighton, who were down to 10 men for about an hour of that game, and then the away win against Sheffield United, they probably nicked it. Gineppo got a great goal in that match. So he's there a good while now, and obviously the honeymoon period is long gone, and the style of play he's trying to implement, we can still see it. And the problem Southampton have always had is goal scorers, and I've mentioned it before, Che Adams, his second half of last season was really, really poor, I thought, at Birmingham, and they still bought him in the summer. So it's Danny Ings is stepping up to the plate. He's got 5 goals in his last 4 games. So if Ings can continue that kind of form, I think Southampton will be okay. In terms of Leicester, they're very strong defensively, but we've mentioned it previously, they're not creating much. Jamie Maddison wasn't fully fit last week against Burnley. He came off after about 70 minutes before they got the winner. And wasn't his best game in a while. So I just think at the prices, I'd be leaning towards the draw there. And if you're looking at a goal scorer, it's either Vardy or Ings. There's 13-2 out there on Danny Ings. Just given his recent form, I think I'd probably side with Danny Ings over Vardy.
Brilliant. Liam, I mean, Leicester, I was looking at the table earlier, albeit only for a night, but they could go second in the division if they win here. So there's certainly sentiment for them to go on and win. Southampton struggling. What do you make of it?
Yeah, so form definitely favours Leicester in this game, but I would actually be reluctant to back them. My tip for this one would be both teams to score and over 2.5 goals. I believe James Maddison is possibly a doubt for this game for Leicester. Even if he does feature, then he could be slightly raw.
Yeah.
And his importance in that Leicester team, I don't think can be overstated. Despite the strong start, Leicester, they've only won 3 of their last 12 away games in the Premier League. And I think for that reason, it's probably best to swerve them, especially with the pressure on Southampton. They've in the past come up with some good performances when the pressure is on them. So I would be reluctant to go for a Leicester win. Both teams have scored in all 4 of Southampton's home games this season, and both teams have scored in 3 of Leicester's 4 away matches this season. And as you say, they can go temporarily second with victory here, so they'll be chasing a win. And I think that could leave them vulnerable to Southampton on the counter-attack.
Sounds good, Mark. I think we briefly spoke about it on last week's football postcast, but it does seem like Leicester are punching above their weight slightly.
In terms of stats, yeah definitely. They're down in 17th in shots on target, which for a team that everybody's talking about as this free-flowing side that's full of flair, and Brendan Rodgers, what brilliant football they play, and I think they do up until a point. But they're still not having that many shots, and Burnley probably feel a little bit hard done by last week that they didn't get something out of that game. I think Leicester will be very popular with people that are not looking at those stats. I think they'll look at the price and think, I like Leicester here, because if they are going to be a top 4, top 6 team, you look at Man United going, they're odds on at Norwich, and Tottenham were, I think, odds on at Brighton. So if you are going to become a top 4, top 6 team, I think these are you kind of would expect probably closer to even money for this game. The fact that their sort of stats are low, I think, is why the bookmakers are looking to get them. I in saying all that about Leicester, I like both teams to score. Liam mentioned it's copped in all of Southampton's home games this season. You can go back further than that. It's copped in 18 of their last 19 home matches. And under Hasenhüttl, 18 games at home, they've scored in all of them. So they are a team that leave themselves vulnerable defensively. I don't rate them at the back. They're a bit tighter against Wolves, but I don't really like them individually defensively. But I think Danny Ings is in good nick, and I wouldn't be surprised if this was a high scoring game.
Brilliant. Right, we're going for a quick break. We'll be back in a minute.
I'm Jose Mourinho. I know a thing or two about being special. English Manager of the Year 3 times, special. Winning the daily jackpot on Paddy Power games, not special.
Understood, Jose. Yes, someone wins an average £40,000 jackpot every single day. So if you win, don't think you're special. Daily Jackpots by Paddy Power Games. Jackpots must be awarded by 11 p.m. and vary from day to day. Jackpot is shared with other operators. Available on selected games. T's and C's at paddypower.com. 18 plus BeGambleAware.org.
Hello and welcome back to the Football Postcast here on the Racing Post, joined by Jason Murphy, Liam Flynn and Mark Langdon in the studio with myself, Jack Reeve. We've just had the thoughts on Friday night's game between Southampton and Leicester. Let's get into the Saturday midday fixture between Manchester City and Aston Villa. This is a 12:30 kickoff. Jason, what are the odds like for this?
Yeah, so we've Man City 1-12. You can get the draw at 9-1, and Aston Villa 20-1.
Liam, 1-12, Manchester City. I know that, they haven't been as dominant this season as maybe some would have expected, but Villa, off the back of that win against Norwich a few weeks ago and a win last week as well, surely some people might be fancying them here.
Possibly. I think that price for City is kind of the norm when they're playing at home in the Premier League now. One bet which is sort of becoming increasingly popular is being Manchester City to win and both teams to score, and that's kind of the angle I'm looking at for this one. Clicked in midweek against Atalanta. As I say, it's become increasingly popular because of the injury to Aymeric Laporte. John Stones has kind of started coming back into the fold now, but obviously he's been out. I do quite like the look of that partnership of Rodri and Fernandinho as the two centre-backs. Obviously we know Pep Guardiola is good at sort of transforming defensive midfielders into centre-backs, and I think the two of them, they're both very good in possession, which obviously helps with that whole playing out from the back system that City are looking to play, but that combination is still kind of in its infancy, so I think they are still a little bit vulnerable at the back, and Villa, they've been in the goals of late. You look at the Jack Grealish sort of getting into a bit of goal-scoring form. They've notched 14 goals in their last 5 matches, and City have had just 2 clean sheets in their last 5 games. So I think, with the prices, obviously City will probably go on and win this game, but I can see Villa getting on the score sheet.
Right, Jason, where are we trying to find value here then, mate?
Yeah, similar to Liam, you could look at the both teams to score market. The 1-12 is probably a bit short on City, and normally you go half-time, full-time, but again, there's not much value in there. It's about 2-5, 4-9. Couple of interesting things with City. Their centre-back partnership, I think Rodri picked up an injury midweek and it's possibly could be out for up to 3 weeks, which takes him out of the Liverpool game. So then you're starting to think it's fine Rodri, Fernandinho against the likes of Palace, Aston Villa, where the defence will be in the opponent's half and picking passes. Yeah. But does Pep start targeting that Liverpool game now that's on, I think it's the 11th of next month? And does he say, right, Stones and Otamendi, let's get a bit of game time together this game, Southampton next week? And then he has Fernandinho to play that role. Now, Gundogan is very good in what he does, but I think Fernandinho in that role in midfield against Liverpool would be the better option. So I'm really interested to see what Pep does this weekend from that point of view. City are just brilliant going forward. The game against Palace last week, Raheem Sterling, we've seen it midweek as well. He's 25 next month. He's getting to Messi kind of levels in what he is doing. And I'm just thinking with Messi coming towards the end of his career, if Barcelona were looking for a like replacement, I'd put Sterling in that bracket. And he is ambitious. He had no issue leaving Liverpool when he was younger. If Barcelona came knocking, I'd say he'd definitely go. He's passed to Silva for the goal last week, was incredible. And just on the City jerseys as well, I wonder if that's intentional, the colour of them, because watching it on the TV screen, I just, honest God, those fine margins, if Pep had an input on that, because it's so easy to pick out the little pink circles going around, as good as David Silva and De Bruyne are, if that colour just makes a difference, even if it's 0.01, I wouldn't be surprised if Pep had an input in it. But all that saying, City to win this game. Aston Villa, they've won changed in the last 3 matches, so they know what their best 11 is. But the win against Norwich, I don't think counts because of Norwich's injuries. Yes, they got a result last week, but it was against 10-man Brighton, who, Dean Smith came out himself afterwards and said we probably didn't deserve to win. So Aston Villa have had an easy start to the season. This is obviously their toughest game of the season, so we'll see how they kick on from here. But if you're looking for value, I just go with goal scorers when team news comes out. Bernardo Silva, if he's in the front three, 7-1 is a bet. Or if Jesus starts instead of Aguero, he's always at a bigger price when he's still playing the same position to Aguero. The balls will be put on the play for him. So I'd have a look at Jesus. It's clicked in 2 of his last 3 starts as well, first goal scorer.
Marginal gains, I absolutely love that. Mark, you had a fantastic first goal scorer tip last week, didn't you? Dipping in the same market again?
Yeah, Alonso to score first for
Chelsea.
Nearly had another anytime one. Ogbonna, Pickford produced a brilliant save from Ogbonna in that West Ham game. I'm not going for the scores because, like Jason was mentioning there, I think it is team news related. So I'll wait and see who's in that front three. And I think City have got so many different options. It always puts me off slightly. I was looking at City to win both halves. It's around 4-5, 5-6. It actually hasn't copped that many times. Only 6 of 13 this season and 3 of 6 at home. So on them pure odds, it actually isn't a bet. But if you look at the teams that have done well against City at the Etihad, I'm thinking Palace's win, Wolves' win. They've got something in common in terms of the way they defend and then hit on the counter-attack. Aston Villa, I don't think, can protect themselves. They conceded 3 at Arsenal's 10 men. They conceded 3 to Tottenham as well. And if you concede in 3 in North London to those 2 teams, I mean, you're struggling, I think, against Man City. Villa at home, I think, are a team actually that could be interesting against teams of a similar ability. But I look at that team and don't see where they protect themselves. So I think City will win very easily. Could be like a 4 or 5-0.
Brilliant. If you've got any fancies at home, please do feel free to drop it in the YouTube comments section below. Let's get into the 3 o'clock Saturday games. There are not many this week. Brighton against Everton. We'll start with that one. Jason, how are Paddy Power shaping up for this?
Yeah, we've Brighton 9-5, the draw 11-5, and Everton 6-4.
And it was a very important win for Everton last weekend, wasn't it? I think a lot of people probably fancied West Ham to go there and get something, but it wasn't to be, and Everton brought the goods.
Yeah, Everton, they showed up on the day, but West Ham didn't, and it's Jekyll and Hyde United again from West Ham, you know what I mean? Everton, yes, it was a good result, but Pellegrini came out after that and commented on the commitment and the running from Everton. Why isn't that a given with West Ham? They're either really good or really bad, West Ham. There's nothing in between. So that Everton win, very important for them. Silva made the 5 changes, some of them enforced with Coleman being suspended. I don't think he comes back in. And Sidibe did very well. But I'm just a big fan of Brighton. Like I said, even down to 10 men last week, they possibly should have got something out of that game. Aaron Connolly at 0-0 had 2 great chances. He should have gone around the keeper with 1. There was another came back real quick off Tyrone Mings and he knocks it over the bar. So just at the prices, I'd be quite sweet on Brighton. I know Moy is suspended, but Trossard started the season very well, but he's back. He was on the bench last week, I think. So, he was very good for Genk last season. So I just think at the prices, I wouldn't have Everton's favourite going to Brighton now, especially after what they did to Spurs in the last home game.
Yeah, Liam, at the start of the season, I was really chuffed for Brighton fans when I saw that they didn't have to suffer Chris Hughton football anymore. But it's been tough to figure out what exactly they're about this season, I think. What are you thinking for this game?
Yeah, it's going to take time, I think, for Graham Potter. He's still in the early stages of his career there. This one for me is a very tough one to call. I'll probably shy away from the results markets and actually look at a first goal scorer bet, Lewis Dunk at 35-1.
Here we go.
I think he's irregular in the heart of Brighton's defence. I can see him playing for potentially moving to a top 6 club in the near future. I rate him very highly as a defender. No Premier League club have conceded more goals from set pieces this season than Everton, so I think he could be a danger from those set plays. So yeah, 35-1, I think first goal scorer maybe each way would be a good bet.
If that comes in, beers on you. Mark, what about you?
I like Brighton. I think Everton only scored 1 goal in their 4 away matches. And I think Everton, particularly when they play well, it always looks like Gomez plays well when Everton do. He doesn't like pressure. He's fine when West Ham stand off him and he can pick a pass. Brighton are all over you. You know, their press is, I think, really come on a lot. And actually, the games that they've lost. I mean, they've had some silly red cards that have or just red cards that have cost them more than once this season. If they play like they did against Tottenham, I think they'll win this game. Following on from what Liam was saying, I had a different Brighton defender, but exact same reasoning. Ogbonna should have scored last week against Everton. The idea that they've suddenly, the idea that they've suddenly solved their set piece crisis, as Leon Osmond said on BT Sport after the game. I mean, Ogbonna's 6 yards out and misses. You know, so it was very much a result bias analysis there. They still didn't look very good defending set pieces. Dan Burn, absolute giant at the back for Brighton. If he plays, he would be my one. He had the goal chalked off of VAR this season already. He got 6 or 7 goals for Wigan in the 2017-18 season, so he is definitely a threat aerially. They've got a few, Duffy, Dunk, have been sort of go-tos, I think, over the last few years. I just think Burns another one that could go in there. But yeah, I'd target Everton at set pieces.
Love that.
Just add to that what I would say as well, Yerry Mina is a doubt. He's an absolute monster, a giant at the back for Everton. It could be Holgate that comes in to replace him, so that's another reason to be looking at.
I mean, Pascal Gross is one of the best set piece deliverers in the Premier League as well. So just back all the Brighton defenders. I think.
Well, you've convinced me. On to the next game. There's always one Premier League game every week that just doesn't stand out as being exciting for me. It's Watford against Bournemouth. Jason, can you try and get me excited for this?
I'm doing my best. We've Watford 11-10, the draw 5-2, and Bournemouth 11-5. Watford is the only team without a win in the league this season so far. But that 11-10 would suggest to me that the market accounting for home advantage is kind of rating Watford and Bournemouth kind of similar levels, which suggests that, yes, they haven't got a win, but it's probably just a bad run of luck. And I think that is backed up by some of the performances that I've seen from Watford this season. You look at Bournemouth, you always expect goals. And if you go back to when Gracia was in charge of Watford at the start of the season, that game against West Ham, it was 3-1. You're probably, the prices in terms of both teams to score and overs, the goal expectancy in this match, looking at historical prices, is expecting goals, and therefore I'd be actually going on the under 2.5 goals at odds against that, about 5-4. The reason being, with the change of manager in Watford, I think they're a bit more defensively solid than what they had been under Gracia. Under 2.5 clicked last week against Spurs. It clicked 0-0 in their previous home game as well for Watford, and it was also Bournemouth were 0-0 as well against Norwich last week. So for me, I just think the market, when it price ups these, looks at previous historical prices, but looking at this game in isolation, I think it's going to be tight, and I think the unders at odds against would be what I'd be siding with.
Liam, what about you?
Yeah, I'm happy to back Watford to get their first league win of the season. I was solid in that goalless draw. Sheffield United took a point off Tottenham. And in that second half, I was at the game at Vicarage Road against Arsenal, and probably deserved to win that game in fairness. So yeah, like Jason said, I do think it's possibly a little run of bad luck, and maybe performances have warranted a win along the way. So Bournemouth have only won 5 of their 19 away league games last season, and they're a much better side in their own backyard. So yeah, I'd be happy to back Watford at Vicarage Road.
I'll play devil's advocate here, Mark, and say that surely if it was bad luck, they would have slipped out of it after, 8-9 games into the season.
The thing with Lady Luck is you never know when she's going to turn up. I agree that Watford have been unlucky, but the market reflects the fact that they've been unlucky. It's not like it's been missed. As Jason said, they are the odds are saying they're as good as Bournemouth, and I think that confidence will have been dented by what happened against Tottenham. You know, they had that game at their mercy. Spurs were horrendous and they still found a way not to win. I'm going to go for Bournemouth. Their 3 defeats this season have been against City, Leicester and Arsenal. They've won at Villa, they've won at Southampton. I mean, this is a similar level of game for me.
Definitely. Sounds good. West Ham, Sheffield United next up. Sheffield United off the back of a brilliant win in the week. We spoke about it earlier, Jason. West Ham, you never quite know what team's going to turn up. You always know what team's going to turn up under Chris Wilder. What are we thinking for this?
Yeah, so we've West Ham evens, draw 12-5 and Sheffield United 5-2. I think if you were pricing this first game of the season, West Ham would be a lot shorter. So the market has copped on to Sheffield United. And West Ham, like, how could you go out with West Ham being a fan? Like, you know, you're head over heels beating United, and then the following home game they're losing to Crystal Palace. They're messing you around. You just don't know what's going to show up. So for me, at those prices, even though the market is bigger on West Ham than what it would be at the start of the season, I still think there's value in Sheffield United here in the +1. Under Chris Wilder, defensively so solid. Only 41 goals conceded in 46 games in the Championship last season. They've brought that up this season with them to the Premier League, unbeaten away from home. But they're a clever football inside. If you go back to the first game of the season away to Bournemouth, they get a free kick with 3 minutes left. It's out high, wide. You think, right, they're going to cross it. They don't. They work it down to the end line and get the ball in for Billy Sharp. Every other team will cross that in. But Bournemouth, on the first game, first day of the season, play smart, clever football. If you make the right decisions and you're solid defensively, I think, you know, Sheffield United are going to be sound over the course of this season. So for me, 8-11 Sheffield United +1 against a West Ham side that is so unpredictable. I'd stick it in all that because I think it's great value.
Brilliant. Liam, I think I'm glad that people are starting to cotton on with Sheffield United last season, because it was almost they were the team that weren't playing attractive football, but actually they had a fantastic season in the Championship, and we saw that in the week. It's tough to bet on a game like this, though, isn't it, when you just simply don't know what West Ham side are going to turn up?
No, yeah, absolutely, because they do have some great players going forwards. But as you say, Sheffield United very resolute at the back. I think Monday night is just a typical game that Arsenal always lose, as sort of away to a sort of robust defensive side like them. I like the look of under 2.5 goals. At this one, a shade of odds on. They'll be hoping to cash in on the feel-good factor of that result on Monday night. Away from home, they tend to keep pretty compact in that 3-5-2 system that they set up in, and they limit chances. I think the likes of Felipe Anderson, Sebastian Haller have kind of looked pretty poor recently for West Ham and against Everton. And under 2.5 goals has landed in Sheffield United's last 6 matches. So as we said, very tight defensively, and I can see it being a low-scoring game again.
You're going to keep Chris Wilder on your good side, Mark?
Yeah, I think so. I'm going to go for the draw. So that does sort of factor in, I think, what Liam was saying there, about a low-scoring game. They've only conceded 2 goals in the last 5 matches, Sheffield United. I do wonder when teams have a look at them second time round, because you do sometimes get teams that, once managers have a good work out of what's going on, it might be more difficult for them, but at the moment they're causing problems for everybody. They're drawn at Chelsea, Bournemouth and Watford. West Ham are in the bottom half now, which is quite surprising, given there was a lot of positivity about them early on. They only beat bad teams: 19th place Norwich, 20th place Watford, and the hopeless Manchester United. So if you have a look at it, their performances I don't think have been good enough recently. I speak to a few West Ham fans. They're not happy at the moment. Again, it's very much an up and down with them, but they say they've not been playing that well. Expected goals got them pretty down as well. So I wouldn't be backing West Ham, I don't think.
Only beat bad teams. The cheek of it, Mark. I think we play you boys in a few weeks. We'll see who's a bad team then.
Good, yeah.
Up next, it's Burnley against Chelsea. 5:30 kickoff. Jason, what are we thinking for this?
Yeah, so we've Burnley 10-3, the draw 11-4, and Chelsea 4-6. Chelsea 6 wins in a row now for Chelsea off the back of last night. 7 wins out of 9 in total. The 2 that they lost in that run was against Liverpool, which probably should have got a result. Yeah. And at home to Valencia, where it was a late goal from Rodrigo and Barkley misses a penalty that they probably should have avoided defeat. So Lampard's body of work, it's starting to look decent now. Even that 4-0 against United at the start of the season, Chelsea hit the post at 0-0. United get a penalty, and goals change games. So we're unsure on Lampard. Like I say, we were only 1 season at Derby to go off. But so far so good. If he keeps going the way it's going with a team that should improve, I think the team last night was younger than Ajax's starting 11, which probably never happens really, But having said all that, I'm quite sweet on Burnley. They had Europa League troubles last season and they only got to about 40 points. The season before they got to 54 points. which got them into the Europa League. And they've won 3, drawn 3, lost 3. If they keep that up over the course of the season, they're heading towards 50, 55 points again this season. So they haven't had really a bad performance either, apart from maybe Brighton away, which is still nicked a point in. It's just against the big teams, they're coming off the wrong side despite good performances. Away to Arsenal, at home to Liverpool, they lost 3-0, but it wasn't a 3-0. And even last week against Leicester, they deserved something out of that game. So I think Burnley will put in a good performance here. And at the prices, I'd probably go Burnley +1 at evens. And then if you're looking for a goal scorer, televised game, you might be watching it. So Chris Wood, 4-4. It's probably the smart choice. Barnes may or may not be back, but I'd go with Woods.
Mark, I wasn't entirely convinced with Frank Lampard's season at Derby last season. I don't think he sort of implemented a style at all, and they probably should have done better than they did. But as Jason said, there's 6 wins in a row for his boys now. They're starting to get into some kind of momentum, aren't they?
They are. I initially had Chelsea down as a bet, and then they beat Ajax, and the price has come in a bit, and it's probably gone a little bit too far now. But yeah, I mean, Lampard, I didn't think he did a great job at Derby. I mean, he didn't improve them in terms of position. Their stats were no more than okay. He had Tomori and Mason Mount and Harry Wilson playing for him in the Championship.
Strikers as well.
And I didn't think there was I agree. I don't think there was a clear identity in terms of style of play. I feel like they got a bit better as the season went on, but it's definitely, with better players, it's working well at Chelsea. I think Jorginho is playing really well. So the Chelsea fans don't like Maurizio Sarri, but at least he brought in a real quality player there. And he seems to be playing quicker and forward quicker, which maybe was a problem for them last season. I think Chelsea to win and over 2.5 goals could be the way to go. Now, they have kept successive clean sheets, and they defended quite well against Ajax, and Newcastle just offered absolutely nothing. But if you go back sort of take the whole season, as a whole, they've still conceded a lot of goals for a team that's going to be fighting for Champions League, but they've got a lot of quality in the final third. And off the bench as well, Pulisic made a difference, Batshuayi made a difference, Giroud doesn't get on and still starts for France. So they've got good options. I like Burnley going forward more than I thought I'd ever would have said in recent years. But I do think they're a little bit more vulnerable defensively because of it now. And teams have maybe worked them out a little bit in terms of how you can hurt that Tarkowski-Mee centre-back pairing. So I'll go for Chelsea to win a high-scoring game. Don't say that often at
Starting to get a bit worried about you.
Yeah, I was
2
positive.
weeks in a row you've complimented Burnley now.
Yeah, I have, yeah. I mean, stats-wise, they're doing a little bit better than when they were, this team that fluked their way up to 7th in the Europa League. It's impressive.
Liam, what about you, mate?
I'm still not completely convinced by Chelsea, to be honest. I mean, I know they've won, like I said, 6 on a spin now, but as I said at the start of the show, those first 5 games before the Ajax one, they're games you kind of expected them to win.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's a game against Grimsby in that run as well. So it'll take a little bit more time for me to be completely convinced by Frank Lampard and Chelsea. So for that reason, I'm going for a draw in this one. A trip to Turf Moor is probably one of the last grounds you want to go to after quite an arduous European trip in midweek out to Ajax. Chelsea they couldn't really let their concentration drop for any of the 90 minutes in that game. And Ajax had chances, but Chelsea got their reward in the end, 1-0 win. But I think maybe that hangover could kick in on Saturday evening. Chelsea have been excellent in the final thirds. Tammy Abraham, Mason Mount, we all know about now, netted 19 goals, but obviously still conceded 14. I know obviously the majority of those were towards the very start of the season, but I'm still not completely convinced by them at the back. And I just think, as Mark said, Burnley, they've got a little bit to offer going forwards now, so maybe even a score draw might be worth a look.
Sounds good, yeah. 10-3 on Burnley. I fancy some of that as well. Right, we'll go in for a quick break. We'll see you in a minute.
Everything is better when it's bigger. Paddy Power's Same Game Multi allows you to combine a number of selections from a single match into one big bet. Check out the Same Game Multi tab and get building your bet. Terms and conditions apply. 18+, begambleaware.org.
Welcome back to the Football Postcast here on the Racing Post. Thank you so much for tuning in once again. We've got Jason Murphy from Paddy Power in the studio alongside our very own Racing Post colleagues, Liam Flynn and Mark Landon. Thanks so much for being here. Gents, let's get into Super Sunday then. Nothing quite epitomises Super Sunday like Newcastle versus Wolves, Jason, does it?
It certainly doesn't. We've Newcastle 15-8 to draw 7-1 and Wolves 8-5. Newcastle, they've had a really difficult start to the season. What I consider to be the top 7 if you include Leicester. Newcastle have played 6 of the top 7, so it's really now the next run of games is going to see what is Steve Bruce going to get out of this Newcastle squad. In terms of Wolves, today is only Thursday, so we have to see how they get on in Bratislava tonight, but The last time out, they were away to Besiktas. They won that game and came back and bet Man City. So I don't see this being an issue. Like, they're a well-run club. So
Yeah.
But at the prices, I think 2-1 is probably the value. Wolves did win this match last season. If Matt Doherty is on the pitch, have a look anytime goal scorer. He got a couple of goals last season. It's up between him and Traore, but he does get forward. He does get into advanced positions. Like I said, scored the winner there last season. So maybe have a look at Matt Doherty in the anytime goal scorer market. But yeah, it's probably not the most exciting. So the value is probably in the draw.
Liam, I don't know about you, mate, but Newcastle confused me slightly. They've had a few fantastic wins this season, and other performances they've just looked garbage, haven't they?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think they're a strong defensive side, but just going forward, they've just got nothing. For that reason, I think Wolves to win by 1 goal at 16-5 in this one. I think under 2.5 is around the 1-2 mark in this game, so we're not really expecting a memorable clash by any means. And with the exception of the 5-0 mauling at Leicester, they've kept their games pretty tight. 3 of their 5 defeats have been settled by a single goal, and that was against Chelsea, Manchester United and Arsenal. So they know how to make life difficult for stronger sides. Obviously, you'd probably categorise Wolves as one of the better attacking sides in the Premier League now. I agree with Jason. I don't think the Europa League trip should have too much of an impact on this, but I still think that they might not be at their absolute best for that reason. So yeah, slender win for me. Wolves to win by 1 goal.
You feel a bit sorry for Steve Bruce, Mark?
No, not really. I mean, he knew what he was walking into, and yeah, he's quite lucky, I think, to have a Premier League job. Given some of what he's been up to sort of recently. I think he's, most people would. He was only getting Newcastle, wasn't he? Let's face it. I mean, he wasn't getting any other Premier League job unless he took a team up. So I don't feel sorry for him, but I think he's done well defensively. They've only conceded 2 goals in their 4 home games. So I think the draw is the way to go here. Wolves have had 5 draws in 9 Premier League games already. They are a team that maybe finds it a little bit difficult to win, but are difficult to beat as well. So they only had 1 shot on target against Southampton. That was the penalty last week. So I think this could be a very low scoring game. Probably couldn't put you off no goal scorer if you wanted to try and dig out a bit more sort of a price.
Steve Bruce, if you're watching, I feel sorry for you. Now, this is a corking game. Super Sunday, Liverpool versus Spurs, 4:30. Jason, I am excited for this one. Are you?
Yeah, big time. Really looking forward to this. We've Liverpool 4-9, the draw 7-2, and Tottenham 5-1.
4-9, Liverpool, Liam. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I wouldn't be backing that. I'd like the look of Liverpool to win an under 3.5 goals to get a bit more value out of it. If this were at Tottenham, I would have reservations about sort of backing Liverpool at a short price, but the record at Anfield, as we all know, is just absolutely incredible. Unbeaten there in the league since April 2017. Leicester, the last team to get a point at Anfield back in January. And to get anything from a game at Anfield, it takes sort of an industrious group who are working well together, and Tottenham just aren't that at the moment. They could scarcely look further from that. It's a good win in the Champions League in midweek, but they've got 1 win in their last 4. Pressure is obviously on Pochettino. I personally don't think it should be, but there is definitely pressure there on him. And obviously we've had all these alleged issues in the dressing room building up over the last few weeks. So the corresponding fixture finished 2-1 last season, and I think a similar result is probably worth a look. So yeah, Liverpool to win and under 3.5 goals.
Jason, what do you make of that pressure surrounding Pochettino at the moment? Is it warranted?
Yeah, you don't know what you have until it's gone. If he does go, what comes in? There was talk about Mourinho. We all know what that entails. Yes, you might get a few trophies, but at what cost? Look, there was contract issues as well, which is going to unsettle any club, especially when it's your main big stars, the likes of Vertonghen, Eriksen. Best defender, I think, is Vertonghen. It was a good therapeutic win midweek. Got a few goals, get back in the groove. Ali's up and running now again, which is a big loss. I mean, I see people commenting saying Ali's been out of form, but he's been injured. How can a player be in form if he's injured? Give him a chance. I think Liverpool, like Liam said, they're at home. I just think they're phenomenal. There is an Anfield factor there. The 4-9 though is a bit short, considering that they went off 4-7 last season. Okay, that's probably reflective of Spurs' troubles maybe, but I couldn't back Liverpool at 4-9, so therefore you're probably thinking maybe 6-4 +1 Tottenham in the handicap. The only difference maybe from the teams would be Lloris, but he cost them the game last season with that howler near full time. So probably look at Spurs +1. If you're looking at the goal scorers, both teams to score has clicked in 7 of the last 8 league meetings, so there should be goals, which makes for a great game. I'd probably stay away from Salah, Mane and Kane, because I think there's value in the outsiders, as in Firmino or Son. Mark alluded to Son and the track. Now, I don't think he'll be up two up top with Kane this week, but I think Son at 11-1, there's value there, especially at each way. Or even Firmino, he's got the first goal, I think, in 2 of his last 3 matches against Tottenham. First goal scorers clicked. And I think Tottenham are a bit soft at the centre as well. I think Firmino will get chances that he might necessarily get against other teams where he'll be dropping and there'll be like some Mane and Salah running in behind. I think Firmino's going to get a few chances. So him at the bigger prices is probably value as well. So I'd look at the goal scorers and look forward to a good game.
Mark, we all know what happened when Spurs last got thumped. You had your Kit Kat documentary
Yeah.
loaded up. Is that loaded up on iPlayer, ready to go again, or feeling a bit different this time?
I'm feeling slightly different. Of course, there'll be talk of revenge in the air for the Champions League final. I don't really see it. The two teams have gone in very different directions since that game in Madrid in June. I like the look of Liverpool to win 2-1 and 3-1, splitting the stakes in the correct score market. All 5 home games so far for Liverpool have seen both teams to score this season, so they're not defending quite as well. I think I don't know if that's just a bit of bad luck or because Alisson wasn't there. But even with Alisson there, they're still conceding a little bit more than I would have expected. But there is a class differential between the two teams. I think that's pretty obvious. It was very interesting that the team Pochettino picked against Red Star only had one player that doesn't want, in terms of sort of, if you look at like Danny Rose nearly left, Alderweireld nearly left, Eriksen nearly left. None of them started against Red Star. 2 of them weren't even in the squad. The only one that sort of his future's in doubt was actually Vertonghen, and he wants to stay. It's just they're arguing over length of contract. So I think that was maybe interesting as to what Tottenham are doing. I do expect goals. Tottenham have gone 80 games in the Premier League without a 0-0, which is the highest sort of current run in British football. They've gone 101 Premier League games without successive draws, and they drew last week. And just one other stat, Liverpool Liverpool just don't lose games when they're expected to win. Last 51 times they've been odds on in the Premier League, they haven't lost. So it's a big old ask for Tottenham to go to Anfield and win. I don't think that they will.
Sure, love them stats. It's Arsenal versus Crystal Palace. These are the non-televised Sunday games. Liam, I'm going to come to you first on this one because I know you had to sit through the suffering on Monday night. Palace, slightly different opposition. Feeling a bit more confident?
No, well, I wouldn't be backing us anyway. 4-9. I just, after recent performances, been pretty insipid, and even at home, Palace no strangers to winning these kinds of games. I mean, they beat United at Old Trafford. Obviously, won this fixture at the Emirates 3-2 last season. I think goal scorer markets might be able to represent a bit of value here. I did consider Pepe after fairly live performance, but obviously not always the greatest end product at the moment. So instead, I like the look of Bukayo Saka. I mean, some Arsenal fans would argue that he deserves his place in the team over Pepe. And he's probably going to be deployed on the left of Arsenal's attack. I expect to see him start because he's given Emery no reason why he shouldn't. And he's likely to therefore come up against Joel Ward, probably, of Crystal Palace, who I do think is a slight weak point in their defence. And it's just rare to see a player of Saka's age so confident and so composed on the ball. And I'm really excited by him. So I think it's 7-1. I think first goal scorer is probably worth a bet in this game.
Did you think about Pepe, first goal scorer?
I didn't. His first game against Liverpool, he really caught the eye. Had a few breaks and, looked good. But one of the lads kind of commented in the office saying, I'm not sure if he's fully in control of his feet. You're not sure if what he's doing is right. And they bought him off the back of his goal scoring record, but there was a lot of penalties in that last season as well. But give him time, it's a new country, new club. Absolutely give him time. But Saka, like you say, is composed, and you could make an argument for him coming in. In terms of the prices, Arsenal were 8-15 to win this game last season, 4-9 this weekend, but they lost. Palace won 3-2 here last year. And Palace's away record, they've won 2 out of 4 games away from home this season. West Ham and United, good, all right, maybe lucky against United with the penalty. But last season, they won 9 games away from home and only lost 8. So they know how to go and play away from home. Kelly was missing last week, but Tompkins came back in. They've actually got some good centre-backs. Sakho's already out injured, won't be back for this game, but I think at the prices, 13-8 plus 1 on Crystal Palace, I think is a very good bet. Aubameyang and Luiz aren't playing Europa League Thursday night, so they'll be fresh. But even still, I think Palace will be even fresher. And yeah, definitely, I wouldn't be backing Arsenal at that price.
Palace have looked good this season, haven't they, Mark?
Not when I saw them. They were hopeless at what is it still White Hart Lane? I still call it White Hart Lane, but they were hopeless there. And I was looking at them thinking they'll be relegated, and they were terrible at Sheffield United as well. But there are other games where they've managed to win. You have got to respect their sort of ability to call shots. They've done it on more than one occasion, but I think Arsenal are pretty easy to read. That game at Sheffield United, I think Last week I said I didn't fancy it. It's just a sort of game where they don't win. Nothing has changed from when Arsene Wenger was in charge. It's like he'd been on holiday for 2 years, and you would think he's still there. Like the football just feels the same. It's a little bit slower, if anything. But Arsenal to win by 1 goal. They've beaten Burnley, Bournemouth, and Villa by 1 goal this season at the Emirates. They beat Newcastle by 1 goal as well away from home. I think Palace are the sort of team, you saw it last week against Man City. They don't lose their shape and think, oh, we've got to try and get back into this game. You know, they'll keep it tight for as long as they possibly can, even if they're down by a goal. So I'm glad it's not on TV. I don't think it'll be a great one.
I can assure you this next one will be a great one. It's Norwich versus Manchester United, Jason. I am going, and I suppose Norwich have to be beating teams in and around them, don't they, Jason?
Yeah, this is it. Real 6-pointer. Norwich 10-3, the draw 11-4, and Man United 8-11.
And after the slightly better performance from Norwich last week, and Manchester United looked far better against Liverpool as well, what are we thinking here? Because I know Manchester United should be expecting to win this, but after what we've seen this season, it might not be as easy as they thought.
No, absolutely not. Norwich, actually, the 11 that got out against Bournemouth, given all their injury trouble, it was actually a pretty decent 11. Be interesting to see the overtime bill now from the physio, but it's hard to know with United. The thing is, they could have actually lost last week, and if they won this game, Solskjaer would be okay.
Yeah.
But given the performance last week and the draw, not getting the win when probably should have maybe, with 10 minutes to go, if they actually lose this game, the pressure is back on them, the spotlight is back on them. It's a massive game for Solskjaer. And United, I've said it before, the worst thing ever happened was scoring that penalty against PSG because they had to give him the job, and they're on a hiding to nothing against Barcelona in the next round. The transfer business was good in the summer. Maguire, Wan-Bissaka, Daniel James. United need another 2 windows like that to get the right players in the right positions. And then it's a question of Solskjaer. Is he the manager to get the most out of that squad? I don't know if he is. And I think if they lose this game, it is possibly, the pressure will come and that's it. They'll start looking elsewhere. There is rumours they already started looking at Allegri. He was backed into 3-1 there last week. So what's going to happen? I really don't know. It's
the insight we offer.
Pogba is out as well, which I think is a massive player that you need to keep him at the club. Great that Martial is back, but that probably pushes Rashford out wide when he looked good up top last week with Daniel James. Look, I'd probably side with both teams to score. I think is probably the safest bet, and I'd like to see United win.
Yeah, in all seriousness, Liam, Manchester United should be expecting to go to Carrow Road and win, shouldn't they?
Yeah, but I'd go for Norwich draw no bet in this one. I think that I'd be happy to back them just with that insurance of the draw no bet as well. I think the Liverpool game it did play into Manchester United's hands a little bit. They were underdogs. They didn't have to worry about dominating possession. They could rely on counter-attacks through James and Rashford deployed as kind of a wide front two, if you like. And they'd almost be better off playing that way against pretty much every Premier League side because that plays to their own strengths. And I know there's kind of this sort of arrogance that a top 6 side should be dominating possession against the rest of the Premier League, but that's not always the way to go about it. And I think naturally there's going to be sort of an expectation for them to control games, but this is a dangerous fixture for them because of Norwich's attacking qualities. I think Farke is now obviously starting to get a more recognisable starting 11 back together. Cantwell and Buendia, just crucial on the flanks. Wing-backs, Lewis and Aarons. I think those players are going to be in particular important in this game, as I talked about with United's pace and width. And United winless in their last 11 away matches in all competitions. So
that's unbelievable, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a very poor run. Very, very pour run. So for that reason, I wouldn't go anywhere near Manchester United. I agree both teams to score might be a good angle, but for me, Norwich draw no bet.
Mark?
I'm going to go for under 2.5 goals, actually. I mean, we're speaking before the game against Partizan, but United's last 9 games have all been unders. That includes home matches against Astana and Rochdale. They didn't have a shot on target away to RZ Alkmaar. The Liverpool game, I think they're getting a little bit too much credit for. I mean, it was a pretty defensive performance, and it worked to an extent, but if the referee gives a foul, which he probably does more times than not, and Liverpool get the 1-0 win, Solskjaer gets slaughtered for playing such a defensive game. But they are good defensively. I think they spent a lot of money, but Wan-Bissaka and Maguire have really helped them out in that regard. It's just they've lost some of their attacking sort of combinations, and also I think the midfield very limited at the moment without Pogba. And Norwich, they're seen as this gung-ho team because of that 3-2 against Man City. 5 of their last 7 have been unders as well. I think Farke maybe has perhaps it was pragmatism with the injuries, but I think he's reined it in a little bit because. I think you have to rein it in the Premier League. You start Blackpool found out you can maybe sort of land the odd knockout blow, but it's not really the way to go. Sheffield United are showing the way to go, much more solid look, and I think Norwich have maybe had a look at it and thought they need to play like that. So I'm going to go for the unders.
Good stuff. Right, let's get on to any other fancies for the week. Then EFL, European tips. Jason, we'll start with you, mate.
I'd go with Espanyol away to Levante. It's about 5-2. Espanyol have changed their manager, Machin, who was in charge of Sevilla last season. They lost 1-0 to Villarreal, but already the changes he's made looks good. Whereas Levante, I think, should have got relegated last season, and they haven't improved from last season. So I'll be looking at that. I will give one anti-post tip. David Silva, player of the season, 25-1. I think the narrative, given that it's his last season, it almost like a sympathy vote. What happened with Ryan Giggs? I think. If he's playing well in January and February, I think the papers could get behind him, and something similar to Kante when he won it. I think it's probably worth having a bet. If it's going to a Man City player, De Bruyne, Sterling, they've obviously had a good season. David Silva at 25-1 is worth having a bet as well.
I love that. Who's the favourite, just out of
De Bruyne is about 5-2. Sterling second favourite about 9-2, and hence why you're getting bigger prices on the outsider, so to speak. But I just think with the narrative, unbelievable 10 seasons in the Premier League. What a player! I think it's worth a look.
I like the sound of that. Liam, what about you?
So one in the EFL. Firstly, Fleetwood to beat MK Dons.
It's been awful, haven't they?
Yeah, they have, and Fleetwood still in contention for promotion in League One this season. 7 wins from 13 league games. Lost to Coventry last time out, but won the shot count 19-13 on that occasion. Thumped Burton 4-1, and I think the Brewers are probably a cut above this weekend's opponents, MK Dons, so that would be the first one. And then going into Europe, the Friday game, Cologne to beat Mainz in the Bundesliga. Both sort of Bundesliga carnival clubs, both struggling at the moment. Cologne have looked slightly stronger recently, a 1-1 draw against Schalke, who are doing very well under David Wagner. Followed that with a 3-0 win over sort of the division's whipping boys, Paderborn. But Mainz really been held back. Suspended is Edmilson Fernandez for this game, but they've also been suffering in the absence of their main striker, Jean-Philippe Mateta, who scored 14 of their 46 league goals last season. So, Cologne to beat Mainz.
Him at the moment. Well, they're not at the moment because he's been injured, but they've been tracking him. Roma have got an absolute injury crisis at the moment, so I think Milan could be one to back, maybe on the Asian handicap, so you get a little bit of money even if they don't, as long as they don't lose. They showed improvement last week against Lecce. It finished 2-2, but they played quite well, I thought, Milan. 4 in the EFL for you. Leeds at Sheffield Wednesday. I just think odds against Leeds anywhere is a bet really in the Championship. Portsmouth at Bristol Rovers. Johnson Clark-Harris remains out for them. Massive player for Bristol Rovers. Their shot volume's down when he's not playing, so Pompey to build on their win in the week. The big Devon derby, I think Plymouth are overpriced. Saw them the other week at Swindon. They played really well. They then beat Carlisle. They beat Leyton Orient 4-0. I think they're coming into it at the right time. And Bradford, a little bit unlucky to lose at Port Vale against a Macclesfield team that I'm not sure about at all.
Love the sound of it. Right, my favourite time of the week. Let's get the boys' naps.
This will not be beaten.
Right, gents, naps of the week. Jason, we'll start with you.
I'm going Real Sociedad away to Celta Vigo. Sociedad should be joint top of the table. They've 16 points in the league already. Bet Real bet us 3-1 last week. Very convincing. Week before, they were 1-0 up at home to Getafe. Got a red card after an hour and lost the game 2-1. They're just playing really good attacking football with young players. Odegaard's on loan from Real Madrid, really playing well. Mourinho, he would have been at Newcastle a couple of seasons ago, really good in the midfield. At 6-4 away to a Celta Vigo team that's 17th in the league. They've only scored 5 goals in 9 games. If Aspas isn't doing it for Celta Vigo, they really struggle. So for me, that just looks great value, 6-4 Sociedad.
Love it. Liam?
Yeah, staying in Spain, Sevilla to beat Getafe. Lost only once at home in La Liga this term, 1-0 defeat to Real Madrid. Otherwise been very strong in Andalusia this season. Getafe had a slight upturn in form of late, but I still think they're suffering from a sort of second season syndrome. Looking at their Europa League ties, Getafe have to play a tricky match with Basel on Thursday, while Sevilla have got a less taxing game against the Luxembourgish Dudelange. So I think Julen Lopetegui can rotate his squad a little bit more. So yeah, Sevilla to beat Getafe.
Love it. Mark?
I think, there's been a full EFL midweek when we're going for a treble of European teams. It is difficult to sort of collate all the data by Thursday morning. I'm going for Paris Saint-Germain -1 against Marseille. The biggest game in French football, without a doubt. But, I mean, these two teams just, you can't really compare them anymore. Paris, 9 clean sheets in 11. The last 2 performances, 4-1 away at Nice. Club Brugge are a decent team, and they beat them 5-0. Kylian Mbappe was absolutely sensational when he came off the bench. And there's a theory that sort of Marseille raised their game for Le Classique, but it's not actually played out. Certainly not in the Parc de France, because their last 3 visits have ended in 3-0, 3-0, and 3-1 defeat. So to me, they look like they're heading even more in different directions. So be very disappointed if Paris can't win this one by 2 goals or more.
And we'll have that as an enhanced treble, won't we, on the website?
Absolutely, yeah, we'll get it up.
Brilliant. Links to that will be in the description below. Thanks to Jason, thanks to Liam, and thanks to Mark for another brilliant football postcast this week. Bruce will be back for the racing postcast tomorrow. Feel free to subscribe to YouTube and also on the podcast platform so you never miss out on another episode again. It's free. You might as well do it. Thanks very much for watching. I've been Jack Reeve. We'll see you again very soon. Bye-bye.
Friends, or maybe more. Earn a 20 quid free bet for every friend you refer to Paddy Power, thanks to our Friends with Benefits programme. Log in to your Paddy Power account and share your referral link to get started. Terms and conditions apply. 18+, begambleaware.org.